The years between 1933 and 1945 were not merely the unfolding of history, they were the birth of an empire destined to reign for 1,000 years. The Third Reich, born from the ashes of the Weimar Republic, rose to forge a world order unparalleled in its ambition. Led by Adolf Hitler, the Reich was fueled by a vision of Aryan supremacy, shaping not only its military but its people into a force so potent, so unyielding, that it would transform the world forever. By 1939, the Reich was no longer just a nation, it was a juggernaut, an unstoppable force driven by an iron belief in its destiny. The Wehrmacht, its soldiers honed to perfection, marched with the certainty that history itself had chosen them. Poland was crushed within weeks, France soon after, and the Low Countries fell like dominoes before the precision and fury of the Blitzkrieg. The Reich's tanks rolled across Europe like thunder, lightning wars that left the old powers shattered before they could even comprehend their destruction. Nations, borders, ideologies, none could stand against the machine that Germany had become. Every soldier knew they were part of something greater, not just a war for territory, but a war for the soul of humanity itself. They fought for the purity of the Aryan race, for the future of a world where order and beauty would reign supreme. The old world, weak and decadent, was falling apart under the weight of its own corruption, and it was the Reich's duty to sweep the filth aside and rebuild it anew. In the winter of 1941, the Wehrmacht faced the Soviets on the frozen plains outside Moscow. It was here that the fate of the world hung in the balance, not in the trenches, but in the minds and hearts of the soldiers who stood against the brutal hordes of the East. The Soviets, driven by a doctrine of blind, slavish loyalty, were no match for the Aryan will. Each German soldier believed they were fighting not just for Germany, but for the very future of mankind. The cold was unbearable, the casualties endless, but the Reich's forces pressed on, cutting through the Soviet defenses like a scalpel, carving a path to total domination. In the ruins of Stalingrad, where German soldiers battled hand-to-hand in the gutted remains of a city that had become a symbol of resistance, the struggle was not just physical, it was ideological. The Reich soldiers knew that every inch of ground they gained was another blow against the chaos that threatened to consume Europe. The Soviets fought with desperation, but the Wehrmacht fought with purpose, a purpose so deeply ingrained in their psyche that not even starvation, blood, or death could shake it. Victory in Stalingrad was inevitable, and when it came, the Reich stood poised to sweep across the east, its dominion extending from the Atlantic to the Ural Mountains. In the skies, the Luftwaffe reigned supreme. Its pilots were heroes, descendants of the knights of old, fighting with the courage and honor of Siegfried. Every dogfight was a battle for the future. Every bomb that fell was a message to the world. The Aryan race would not be stopped. Cities burned, and the skies themselves became the realm of the Reich, where no enemy could challenge their dominion. The skies over Europe were cleared of Allied planes, and the Luftwaffe claimed supremacy with ruthless efficiency. Rommel's Afrika Korps, the Desert Fox and his soldiers, swept through North Africa with the same determination that had conquered Europe. In the harsh desert sands, where heat and thirst tested the mettle of even the strongest, the Germans proved their superiority once more. No challenge was too great, no enemy too formidable. The Afrika Korps crushed British forces, pushing them back toward the Suez Canal. By the end of 1942, the Mediterranean was a German lake, and the path to the oil-rich fields of the Middle East lay open. Rommel's brilliance turned the desert into a proving ground for the Reich's might. Back in Europe, the Allies attempted one last desperate push to reclaim the continent. Normandy, the Ardennes, places that would be etched in the history books as the scenes of their final stand. Yet despite their initial advances, the Wehrmacht countered with brutal efficiency. The beaches of Normandy became the Allies' graveyard, their soldiers cut down by machine gun fire, their landing craft burning in the water. The Ardennes offensive, remembered as Hitler's last gamble, instead became the moment where the Reich broke the back of the Allied resistance. The tanks of the Reich rolled over the enemy, pushing them into retreat, and the war in the West came to a close. Britain starved and bombed into submission, sued for peace. The once proud empire, reduced to rubble, knelt before the Reich. London became a puppet state, and the British royal family fled into exile. Their fate a testament to what happens to those who resist the will of the Aryan Empire. By 1945, the Reich's banner flew over a world united under its iron grip. The Fuhrer had led Germany to victory not just over Europe, but over the forces of chaos and disorder that had plagued humanity for centuries. The new order, the Thousand-Year Reich, was no longer a dream. It was a reality. The entire continent had been brought to heel, and now the Reich turned its gaze outward, toward the stars, toward the future. The Wehrmacht stood as the most powerful military force in human history. Its soldiers were the epitome of strength, discipline, and honor. The SS, the ideological backbone of the Reich, ensured that Aryan purity was maintained, that the world would never again descend into the chaos of race mixing and degeneration. Cities rebuilt under the new regime flourished, shining examples of what Aryan superiority could achieve. Berlin, now the capital of the world, stood as a monument to the triumph of the Reich. Grand avenues stretched for miles, lined with statues of Aryan heroes, while the skyline was dominated by the Volksschau, the largest building ever conceived, a symbol of the unbreakable will of the Germanic people. The world had been remade, and the Aryan race had assumed its rightful place as the rulers of all humanity.